Like one of our core values as a team, it's thank you, thank you. We say thank you twice. I'm a Bible guy, so in the Bible, when Jesus wanted to make a point really clear, he would say it twice. And so we have this expression,
A
thank you.
Bible
And it's
guy,
all about
Jesus wanted
not
to
just saying thank you, but showing
really
gratitude.
clear. He would.
That was the one and only Mike Williams, CEO of Williams Media. This is the Creative Journal Podcast. I am your host, Andy of MMG Design, and you're listening to entry number 62 of the Creative Journal. So today's guest is one that I am so excited to bring to you guys. His name is Mike Williams, founder and CEO of Williams Media. It's a marketing and design agency founded in 2014. Over the last decade, Michael has grown the company into a seven-figure business with offices in Buffalo, New York, and Charlotte. He's also the co-founder of Target IQ and Houston Media, which is a small business website development firm dedicated to serving niche markets. And Michael's expertise spans from all things to web, design, development, sales, marketing. But in this conversation, expect to learn how to build a business without a clear vision, how to scale to seven figures without that vision, building a thriving team from scratch, why you don't need a grand plan to succeed, and the mindset shift that every business owner needs to hear. So from a personal standpoint, Michael is a big role model of mine. We actually had a super chance encounter on a call related to a potential project that still might be in the works. But just peeling back the onion and really just trying to be a sponge for information. And that's the whole goal behind the show, is to talk to people that I want to learn from. And Michael fits that vision perfectly, and he also provides value to this audience of marketers and business leaders as well. So if you're entrepreneurial, these are the kinds of conversations you need to be exposing yourself to in order to grow. And Mike has no shortage of business wisdom and knowledge that he's so generously shared in our chat. By the way, if you're a marketing leader or a business owner and you want to start your reading habit, the Essential Marketers Reading Checklist, the best books on business and marketing that you can browse through, test drive, see if you like, included difficulties, page summaries, actionable quotes, and a link to the cheapest place online if you want to buy it and read the whole thing for yourself. Literally a place to test drive a library of all the most helpful books on business without having to buy it beforehand, and give you a chance if you want to see if you like it. First link in the description. Also check out Houston Williams Media will also be in the description as well. Thank you again to Mike for coming on the show. Without further ado, please welcome to the Creative Journal, Mr. Mike Williams. To just start by getting to know you a little bit, your story. We touched on it a little bit in our last chat, but you started kind of in an adjacent industry, and then now you have this, like, even just since I've done the deep dive after our last chat, really, seriously, really impressive sort of portfolio and brand messaging, and just like I even said, it reminded me of Notion, just the way everything interacted with each other, like that cleanliness and professionalism. So give us the backstory on Williams Media and your role in that.
Yeah. So backstory on Williams Media really is I started it after working with an environmental contracting and remediation company. I was in a sales role, a business development role for about 4 years. And as part of that experience, I was traveling around the country trying to, drum up business for the company, but I was using marketing materials that were developed by construction people. So you can imagine, what that looked like. And so, I'm a young guy at the time, in my early 20s, and I'm like, this is not, like, maybe this works, but I don't feel confident going into these, presentations and having these conversations with these materials. And so I really just was like, out of a need to be able to do my job well, I just started rebuilding some of that stuff. Now I had no experience. I've never done graphic design or web development. That really wasn't something I had my head on. I'm a musician, a skateboarder and a musician, as was all my childhood. So I guess I had like a level of creativity, but I never applied it to visual things.
Okay.
So I started, I got the Adobe Creative Suite. I started rebuilding some of these, marketing pamphlets, and redid the PowerPoint presentation. I mean, this was a long time ago. And so, and then I ended up learning a little bit about branding. And so we rebranded the company and we rebuilt the website, and I learned WordPress, and I just kind of started digging into this stuff really out of necessity for the job I was doing. And then, one day I was kind of like, my boss at the time brought me into his office and was like, you probably could do this for other people. I was like, I never thought about it. A lot of people have like these entrepreneurial stories where they had a dream to take over the world. Like I
Yeah.
was just like, I need to do something to earn money, like,
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
and I was like, I suppose I probably could. So I started Williams Media in July of 2014 formally, and I retained them as a client and was kind of doing part-time with them and then part-time kind of running the agency, trying to drum up business and whatnot. And then by February 2015, I went full-time into the agency. And so really it was just me at the time. And it's been 10 years now. We've since grown into a team of about 15 people. And it's been the greatest learning experience of my life. It's been really hard. It's been really awesome. But yeah, that's kind of how things started.
Yeah, dude, I love that. That was a good summary. Like, and the biggest things that stick out to me is like you didn't have the writing on the wall the whole time, and I think especially I've talked to a ton of business owners and entrepreneurs and stuff on here, but like a lot of like the most successful ones didn't have like the clear vision. It was just like, okay, like I found this is what I was good at. I added the most value in, and then they just kind of went in all on that one thing. Like when I was in college, I read this book called "So Good They Can't Ignore You" by Cal Newport,
Okay.
and I would highly recommend that as a book. But he's wrote like Deep Work and just several others kind of in the business owner like focus category.
Sure.
But it's like his main principle is that you don't like determine. It's a much more productive use of your time to get really good at the thing you're doing rather than constantly questioning whether you're doing the right thing. And so many people kind of like waffle back and forth on like what the exact vision for, especially in entrepreneurship, because you always have those false starts. It's like, should I be doing this other thing? Shiny object syndrome is so prominent, and I definitely experienced that a lot. But it's cool to see that from the beginning you almost couldn't fail because you didn't have a clear expectation of what you wanted it to be in the end.
For sure.
And I think that's the problem with people that go out trying to build a team or really shoehorn themselves into a niche, because it really objectifies like the standards of success. Like you have to take these steps to build this agency, but when you're kind of doing it yourself, and also like the complementary nature of like you were getting better at your job that you had while kind of building this, in succession with it. So that's really
I mean, it
interesting.
was weird because like I didn't know that I liked business. I
Yeah.
come from a entrepreneurial family, and all of my, 3 or 4 generations were all business people. But I never had any interest in it. And it was the weirdest thing. I was like I said, if you think about this, my dad is a business owner and a CFO. But very, very left brain, very logical, very analytical, very intelligent, very introverted. And then my mom is a jazz singer, very extroverted, very creative, very like in your face, really amazing, big personality. So I'm like in this middle, I'm like a blend of these two very like extreme people.
Yeah.
But I naturally leaned more towards the creative stuff. And it's weird that I find myself in like this, I'm kind of like doing both of those things at the same time, where I'm doing this creative work, but I also like really love the analytical, intellectual part of business as well. And I never
Yes.
expected that. So
Yeah.
really when I started, like I said, it was like, I'm trying to figure out what I even want to do with my life. Went to university and I worked different jobs and things of that nature. And I was like, this is something I'm enjoying right now, but I don't have some big grand future focus. It's like, I'm just going to do what's in front of me. And it's weird to think that like 10 years later, I'm still doing the same thing. I mean, I've learned so much. I've made a billion mistakes. I've definitely put my wife through the ringer a little bit and having to deal with me, but I can't imagine doing anything else,
Yeah.
after all
No,
this.
dude, that's so awesome to hear. Like, I mean, how did that? Yeah, because I think you never know like what the next opportunity is going to be and how those. And I've even seen it just since going full time is that, and I kind of acknowledged to myself in the beginning, okay, I have my core values, my things that I'm always going to use kind of as a reference point
Sure.
um, to, and like in the beginning, that was very much just saying yes to everything. And I think from that, like having a core, like a cornerstone habit, they call it like James Clear, is something that creates a lot of downstream like opportunities because
Yeah.
if you don't, if because you just make so many decisions in a day and it's hard to it's so hard to have that like a 5 year plan because I've been asked that so many times and yeah, it's cool to see that you didn't tie your identity towards like the success and the failure of like building a business. It was just something that came up organically that you were, how early would you say that you started to have like the clearer vision? Like, okay, like I guess I'm building an agency. Was that kind of like the moment you shifted the full time? It's like, okay, this is the focus, or was the writing on the wall kind of in the beginning where it's like, oh, I can do this for myself.
No, I mean, it really was some people are very, like, are visionaries. They are quintessential textbook visionaries where they are like, I wonder if we could do this. And if we did that, then we could do this. And if we did that, then we could go here. I am not that way. I have, and for better or worse, I am very, I don't know if it's part of the way that I'm built or if I'm just irresponsible, could be one or the other or both.
Yeah.
I don't really look too far ahead, and especially up until that point. Like, I mean, I was 27 when I started the agency, but I wasn't like looking at like, what am I going to do for money or, in 10 years from now, or what's my 401k going to look like, or what are my investments going to look like? Or I really wasn't looking at any of that. I was looking at, can we do something today and can we survive today? And tomorrow, whatever, we'll figure that out. I never really thought about it. And I think as I've gotten older, like I have 2 kids now. I got married the same year that I started the agency, so I don't recommend that for anybody. Still happily married, thank God. But now that I'm older, I have more future focus. Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
more about my kids and what like how to raise them properly and how to give them these balanced experiences and all that type of stuff. And even for my own life and for my wife and I, like I'm looking further in the future. But at the time, I wasn't looking at some crazy vision or some next step. What's this going to produce then? It was just like I'm just going to do what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And I think that has caused me to not worry as much about financial things or where is all this going to go. Sometimes I see these visionary people, like I have a few of them in my life, and I'm like, man, I wish I could think that way. I wish I was this, textbook visionary because they're so inspiring. I would kind of call myself like a pragmatic visionary. Like I operate in a visionary role within the company, but I'm not pie in the sky. I'm very pragmatic. I'm very like, what can we do today that makes sense today? If that thing makes sense tomorrow, we'll get to it. But I think that's kind of how it was for me. I was able to just say, let's just do what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
I
been
think
that
that's
many years and it's worked out okay.
Yeah, I mean, you strike me as a really self-aware person, kind of acknowledging that's how you operate because I would say like I'm very much the same way. Like it's and I've been asked before like what's your motivation if you don't have like a clear vision of what you want success to look like? And I'll ask you like what would you say your motivation is? I mean, I have my answer, but if you don't have like that ideal vision of your 5 year self, then what is the motivation to get up and put yourself through the grindstone every day?
Yeah, I mean, the motivation for me initially was like, what could I give myself to that makes me excited? So I didn't like when I started, it was like I needed something to do, but I've never done anything that I don't enjoy, Like when I was in school
Yeah.
back in the day, it was like, I did terrible in school because I didn't enjoy it. I didn't see the application for it. Now I could be in spreadsheets all day, doing math all day because math is cool when there's
Yeah.
context for it. Math for
Yeah.
no reason is like, this sucks, I hate this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what motivates me what motivated me initially was like I loved creating things and the fact that I could create something that could help somebody else. Well, I mean, that to me was like, this is fantastic. I love this. This is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And so I think like when I started, I remember distinctly, and I remember where I was sitting. I had this thought that like behind every business is a business owner. And that business owner started because they had a dream. They were imagining something that they wanted to do, some change they wanted to affect the world with, some product or some service that was going to help somebody. And I thought like what I want to do is get behind those people. I don't want to just work for small businesses, or I don't want to just have a niche of we work with professional services firms or manufacturing companies or whatever, because behind each of those companies is likely one person or a couple of people who have taken this incredible risk. And I also know what it feels like to do the same thing, and I know what it feels like for me to have somebody come alongside and encourage me when I've had a sucky day, and to believe in what I'm doing, even when I don't know that it's going to work, and to work really hard to make things happen for me. Like I'm talking about like my team members and stuff like that. So I was like, I want to be that for our clients. I want to be the person that believes in them, that encourages them, that helps them push their thing forward. And I really think at the end of the day, that's what motivates me to do what I do.
Yeah. You kind of,
It's not necessarily the like, yeah, I want to see, I love seeing dashboards with money made and leads, tracked and all that. That's all fantastic. But at the end of the day, like there's people that are impacted by those numbers. And the business owners, for example, their families, their kids, their communities, what they're able to do as a result of this thing happening. To me, I'm kind of like, I always have those things in my mind, because it's never just about business. There's always a people component to what happens when a business does well or does not do well. And I want to contribute to other people's businesses doing well, because I know what that affects in the lives of individuals in their world, if that makes some sense.
Yeah, dude. So you start to see like you said, applying context to like actually doing work. So you start to see like how it's no longer objective numbers on a spreadsheet. It's actually the profit from the design, from the marketing strategy, whatever it was that influenced those changes, and then you're just checking on that. It's becoming real. It's becoming realized in real life, and it's so hard because you can kind of, when you're doing that in school, you don't see like the finish line to it. You feel like it's doing it just for the sake of getting it done.
Right.
But when you actually start to see like the impact of it, when you start to get feedback from it, and I think that's like for a lot of like solopreneurs or business owners who like are maybe just getting started, is that you don't apply that context. You don't apply that context. You're just very like checkbox driven. Like these are the steps I have to take in a day in order to reach this objective goal in the future.
For sure.
And especially like the task you just said, like finding new things in the business that you initially didn't attach to your like personality, that you found that you enjoy now that you apply that context to it. And I'm very much like experiencing the same thing, like especially with finances and taxes and learning all this stuff. And a lot of it can be scary, and you realize that the apprehension, the anxiety that comes from these things is just from the fact that you're not leaning into them and like really dedicating yourself to getting good at them. Because I mean, it's like almost like this self-fulfilling cycle too. So and I'm sure you can relate to this, is where you start to have a small win, and then you're like, okay, like if I can accomplish this in this area, what else can I accomplish, And it's just like constantly pulling at that thread, and you branch into all these other areas of, becoming a business owner, and even especially with design too, you get into adjacent like creative logo branding, and then it's like apply it to a website, and then okay, website ongoing to a marketing strategy and social media and so forth. So it's I love what you said about applying context, because especially in those moments where it gets hard, like you kind of have to have that to lean back on. And I think for maybe the people that are visionary, it's that ideal self. It's them in the Tesla and the $5,000 a month apartment. Maybe that's what their like vision is that keeps them going in that moment. But I think for other people, it's just the act of seeing it realized is enough. And especially in the day-to-day things, when you might not be doing something that's like the peak moment of your existence,
Sure.
which a lot of the day isn't. And being able to the ability for that to be enough, I think, is a super powerful thing.
No, I
But
agree. I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, man, so many good things. But how and we kind of touched on this already, but like, how has your roles and like what you enjoy doing during the day changed? I know like a lot of people start from different ways. So you didn't even start in creative. You started with probably the most the most important piece, which is the business development side. Um, and like transparently, like a lot of people start in creative. This is kind of my story, but you start in creative, and then you have to learn the business side of it as you go.
Sure.
So how have your roles changed from being the person that fulfills to more so the person that's working on the business and not so much in it? And what was that transition like for you? I know that's a big question, but what
Yeah.
does your day to day look like now?
Yeah. So I mean, like I've always been in a sales role, but initially I was selling and doing most of the work. Um, but the issue is that I've never worked in an agency, so I had no context for like process or really anything else. Like honestly, to be honest with you, like for probably the first year, I didn't even know that what I was doing was called an agency. Like this is how clueless I actually was. Like
Yeah.
I was like, we do design stuff and build websites. Like I didn't know that people called what I do an agency. Then somebody mentioned it like in passing, like, oh, this is Mike. He runs a creative agency. I'm like, is that what I do? And then I started saying I run a
Yeah.
creative agency.
Yeah. It's like, oh,
And
I
so
guess
I
that's me.
was so clueless. I was so clueless. Um, but I think having to build everything from scratch, it helped me to feel like I built a lot of grit in us, and it took a long time. But I think as we've begun to bring on other people, and like the first few people that I hired were interns right out of college. So like my director of operations, John, he interned with me when we were like a couple of people. Like one of the people was my sister who was doing like office administration, kind of like some project management stuff. And then another guy I had who knew how to fiddle with WordPress sites. But John came in as a college intern, so he didn't have any agency experience either. And now he's built, just hundreds of processes and procedures, and he manages all of our web and creative team. And really, I mean, he functions very much as like a chief operating officer. But like I said, neither of us knew what the heck we were doing at the beginning. And so we had to, obviously a lot of the role initially was sales, doing the work, but also figuring out how to process through that. And then as we
Yeah.
began to roll out new offerings, especially as we moved into digital marketing, which was by far the most challenging thing for me because I'm not a digital marketer. Don't tell my clients that, but I mean, I'm a designer. At least I did design things. I don't even know that I would call myself a designer. I had designed things for a few years and was pretty good at it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also like a
Dude.
businessman and a part of the strategic part of like digital marketing. I ended up really falling in love with, and how that paired with design and communication and sales. Like I love that part of it. So I naturally kind of evolved to this, marketing director sort of role that I really still in a lot of ways sit in that seat right now. But thankfully, like our web and creative team, which John oversees, is outstanding, and our core team members are, they've taken ownership of really that whole side of the business. And if my team members are listening, I'm talking about John, Sebastian, Ellen, and Laura, just so we're clear here. And I love that stuff. Like I love the creative part of things. I love the visual stuff. I love the messaging and the communication stuff, but I'm not as involved in it as I used to be. But it's super fun to see what they create without my involvement. Like they'll come out with something that's absolutely incredible, and I'll see it once it's being presented to the client, and I'm always like, "Oh, this is great! I can't believe this stuff is happening, and I'm not even doing it."
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's way better than what I would ever come up with. So like I'm pumped about that. And then like
Yeah.
my role now is like mostly sales and like business, kind of making sure the business is functioning properly. But it's mostly sales, and it's really, like I said, that kind of marketing director role where I kind of fell into it out of necessity. But and you're never going to catch me like running campaigns or doing the work of SEO on a client account. Like this is not what I do. But most of the strategy and overall definition of what we do to help our clients starts with me. And then I've been fortunate enough to have some really amazing people in marketing roles on our team to really take the strategic stuff that we come up with the client and then really begin to implement that and make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. And I hear, and you always kind of have to draw that line. For me, it's like there's there's that line between action and learning. Like you can interview and even like the most successful. That's why it's such a green light to me that you're just like, oh, I kind of, I built this thing as I went. I didn't have this grand plan, which I think like subconsciously in our minds we always have. I think it's especially true in younger people who are kind of getting that false start. They're like, oh, what should I dive into? And it's a productive procrastination excuse to think like, oh, the people at the top actually have it all laid out. People at the top are just so much smarter than I am, and they can do all these things that their team does whenever, and they usually have like their core strength that they built the business on, the foundations, the values, and then they're very self-aware as to like what they either didn't enjoy doing or didn't want to do, and then those were their first. They found people to fill those roles. So yeah, it's I can even see like you smiled several times just talking about your team, and I think building it because we haven't even talked about it like the solopreneurship, the freelance lifestyle is definitely for some people. But that whole other aspect of like having to show up for someone else and like it's almost another form of accountability.
Oh man, for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like making it real. Like you're sharing what you do, you're putting it out there because talking to clients is one thing and that's definitely a form of validating your processes and so forth. But you find out really fast, I imagine, if your processes aren't in place, if you hand them off to someone else and then they can't do them or they struggle to implement.
For sure.
And I just had like I was very blessed to have like this very low buy-in experience, like just for me lately, where I got like a fully funded intern for the summer, and I was like, okay, this would be a great great test drive of like communication, testing processes, like, and I recorded a ton of Loom videos, like SOPs, and stuff like this, and the kid I got paired with was incredible. Like this kid is so much smarter than I am, and I told him that every single day. Like Liam, he's going into websites and he's implementing like CSS, JavaScript, like integrations, and then he's doing like loading animations, like all this custom code stuff that he's literally writing himself. And I'm watching him do this. I was like, dude, like why am I telling you what to do?
Yeah.
And it was just such a cool process. It was such a cool process to see that like realize on a client's site. I was like, okay, well, this is something I was able to add without having to do it myself. Value I was able to provide, and just how energizing it is to see someone else fulfill that, and then like really be like in their natural state. Like this is what I'm good at, and then be able to package that into something that ends up, facing under your company or agency.
For sure. I mean, I think the thing for me is like what I talked about, like understanding that there's a business owner behind every business and knowing that like, if I can come alongside them and make what they're doing better, it's going to impact so much. I think even beyond that, the way I feel about having like our team members is I want to see our team members, like nothing makes me happier than when somebody does something that is, this is going to sound self-serving, but you have to hear it properly. When they go above and beyond, not because they're like trying to like brown nose me, because my team, they all know that I love them. And I'm really not a tough guy to work for. I really don't think so. I'm pretty forgiving, pretty low key. I don't cuss at people. I don't raise my voice. I'm pretty low key. And they know that. But when they go above and beyond to do something either for the team or for our clients, I'm like, this is amazing because that means you love it.
Yes, it means you did. Yeah, it means
something, and it also is like serving a purpose. It is so exciting to me because it's like you're in the right spot. Like you're doing all this extra. You're putting your whole heart into it, and when you see people who are passionate, they are the people who do the best work. Whether they're the best right now or not really doesn't matter. If they freaking love it, they're going to be amazing at it. And I have
Yeah.
a few people that I'm thinking about in my mind right now on our team that are just like, they continuously are like doing more than even what I ask of them.
Uh-huh.
And they're not like doing it to like show off or like let everybody else in the team know, like, look how great I am, or even to say, hey Mike, look how great I am. They're just,
Yeah.
it's like coming out of their heart. Like they just have to be excellent. And when you see
Yeah.
people doing that, you're like, you are priceless.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
once again, don't tell my team that. I gotta, I gotta balance the
Oh,
books here. But
they'll be listening. They'll be listening.
but you know what I'm saying when I say that? It's like
Yeah.
when you see people who love what they do, they give an X factor to the end product that you couldn't pay enough for.
Yeah. It's like it's just labeling it as like curiosity and passion is such like a blank term for it. I almost feel like because like I had the exact same experience where and I would love your advice on like how you implement like testing people in different areas, like giving them different tasks and kind of keeping tabs on what they enjoy the most
Mm-hmm.
and making that more the future because you can straight up point blank ask someone like what do you enjoy doing the most, and it's not going to be the same thing. It's like for Liam it was, and I could tell right away like he worked for 12, like 11 hours one day doing this custom code solution, and he didn't get paid for it at all. I saw how long he worked, and he was just digging through it trying to get like the scroll animation to work right. Didn't even tell me either. Like I just knew because he caught and didn't tell me, but didn't tell me how long it took. I was like that's incredible, and you can almost talk about like how people when they talk about what they report, or I'm even thinking because I was just an intern too. Like this is I'm not like high and mighty in any sense. But
Mm-hmm.
like even when I was an intern, like the best experiences were and the worst experiences in contrast were the best ones were always I was like looking forward to doing it and I didn't really care about what the manager said. It was just okay, this is what I'm doing, and then they kind of took that feedback and whether and the work kind of speaks for itself in that sense. And
Sure.
that's why like kind of keeping tabs on like what people are getting the most energy out of. Um, it's tough because I know, and that's one of the things we'll touch on for sure is building a team. What those first hires looked like, but I think and obviously I haven't had a breadth of experience, but it sounds like when you get it right, it is very fulfilling. But I know it's very difficult when you get it wrong, or
Sure.
there's trials and tribulations and communication issues and so forth. But has there
Totally.
ever been like I mean, you can get as transparent as you want, but has there ever been like a lesson that you're like particularly grateful for, whether it's in building a team or building the agency, where maybe it was like really hard during the time and maybe awkward or communication was faltering, and you closed the laptop at the end of the day and you're like that this is a tough time. I think we all know what those are like. But is there any like a period of time like that, whether it's with building a team where you're just like now that you're removed from it, you're grateful that you learned that and it happened to you.
Well, I could definitely have a handful of stories. I got to think about which one to talk
Mm-hmm.
about.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
little on the spot, but
no, that's okay. That's okay.
yeah,
Um, in some, like I could think of one or two stories that I I would like to share.
yeah,
However, in with respect to the individual on the other end,
yeah. I
you know,
understand.
I want to be tactful. Um,
So I
not
guess I think a better question would be because that is a loaded question. That's not a loaded question, but it is heavy. But like, what's your internal kind of dialogue like when you face hard times as a business owner, and how do you like take away the lessons from that and kind of detach from like the day to day when you might feel like it's never going to end or you can't kind of see the way out of it, like whether it's like a brief stint or it's an ongoing like tough time.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I get very simple with it. Um, Usually, the first thing I do is talk with my wife. Um, she's a she's a pistol. She shoots me super straight.
Mm-hmm.
She's tough. She's very wise. She's brilliant, and she knows me very well. So that I think it helps to have somebody in your life who knows you, and not just like the podcast version of you, or like the, Sunday morning version of you, like, but they know you on your worst days, and someone who you trust their wisdom and their advice. So, but I think what generally happens is I get to this place of, let's say it's a financial thing, cash flow is weird or whatever. I've never gone a day without eating, and I have this little like thing that I do. Like when I go to Chipotle, like I put guacamole on my burrito. But like I might not be living in the penthouse. I might not, whatever at this point, or we might be struggling financially right now, or for this moment, or whatever. Leads might have dried up, or have an issue with this project, or whatever. But when I go to Chipotle next week, I'm going to put guac on my burrito. And they're going to say, it's extra. I'm going to say, yeah, no, it's extra. Give me that guac. You know what I'm saying? So it's a stupid small thing. The way to say, like, I'm doing just fine. I got more than one pair of shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am doing just fine. And I think the curse of the entrepreneur is like you have some success, but you always want more. There's probably a list of curses we could go through you need to be aware of. But one of the main things is you could never be happy, or there's always more to strive for and to achieve. And I love that. That's an amazing thing because it keeps you sharp and it's fun and the journey's amazing. But
infinite game. Yeah.
You never enjoy where you're at right now because you're always pining for this next level of success. And so I think what happens in those tough days or those difficult times, I'm just like, I've been fine every single day up until right now. I've never gone without eating. I always have a pair of shoes. I always have a roof over my head, and I think that is a humbling position to be at. It kind of brings me back down to reality, and it also stops me from thinking about the future. It gets me in right now. Like I'm good right now. And who knows what happens tomorrow, right? I've had so many days where like even this week I had something that happened. It was like I wasn't expecting this to happen, but it was a huge change and very, very positive, exceedingly positive. But I wasn't expecting this to happen. I didn't know it was going to happen. And so I think we are always like as human beings, we want to have a perfect idea of what the plan is, what the path looks like, what are going to be the signs that we're close to, the next stage or the next level or the next whatever. And unfortunately, we don't get that. But if our attitude and our mindset isn't, if we're looking for those things, we're always like focusing on what's not right. We're going to miss those things when they come. We're going to potentially disqualify ourselves from those things that are like trying to make their way to us in a sense.
Yeah, it's perspective and like being able to cultivate like some sort of presence, like like perspective. And like I think I've talked about it a ton, like with other business owners, like they usually have some kind of a job or some experience where they're comparing what their day-to-day looks like now to something in the past, and 100% can relate to that. Like even on your worst day where say you drop a retainer client or your marketing isn't working or something just totally falls flat, you run into a project on a website which you've just been going to war with all day and you're going to miss deadlines, like all things that we deal with, financial problems as well. It's like, where's the next check going to come from? It's like all of these things, and I would have been dying to be doing this right now when I was a personal trainer cleaning shit out of the toilets on my summer internship. And it's evolutionarily productive that we're wired that way, because we're always looking for the next thing. But it's just the gap between happiness is like the gap between your desires and your expectations. And there's something to be said for resetting the expectations and not just throttling how far you want the desires to go. So trying to meet somewhere in the middle.
That's a good quote there, man. I like that.
Thank you, man.
That's really good.
I'm thinking on the fly here. I'm just trying to waffle a little bit.
You're all philosophical. But I want to write that down. Happiness is the gap between your desire and your whatever it was.
Desire and expectations. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But thank you. But you're bringing it out of me. But like, that's why it's because we'll always compare ourselves to other people. And even like, I don't know if you remember in our first chat, I was kind of fanboying a little bit, like asking you questions like, how'd you build the agency? Like, what were your biggest, like, what were your skill set, your biggest pain points? What are you focused on?
Yeah.
And I even said, I was like, all I'm doing is comparing myself to the person who's 5 or 6 steps ahead, instead of like to the past version of yourself and what you were doing yesterday and what your mindset was like yesterday. And it's so hard to be like the fish inside of water, trying to analyze growth and be that own mentor for yourself. But it takes references, it takes other ideas, and sharing what's going on inside your head. But yeah, man,
And you got to have people
go ahead.
around you who are gonna check you. Like, you
Right.
know, it's really helpful to have people, like I said about my wife, and I got a couple of other like close confidants who will shoot me straight when I'm trying to get whiny for a second. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and if you've not read this book called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy,
Mm-hmm.
it's so good with regard to this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna quote anything from it because I'll won't do a good job, won't do it any service. But it is a fantastic book for business owners or like just people who kind of hold themselves to a high performance standard or who have great big dreams and goals. It is like I read it at the beginning of this year and it really has reset a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not like cured of that
Yeah. Yeah.
predisposition. However, it's giving me like a frame of reference to go back to. And the whole idea is like um, there is a so far that you have come that you can tend to discount or forget about, and
Mm-hmm.
all you do is look at how far you have left to go. If you can
Mm-hmm.
shift your perspective to say, look at how far I've come. The fact that like 75% of businesses don't make it to 10 years, like
Mm-hmm.
I beat 75% of people, not that it's a competition in that sense, but like that maybe I'm not where XYZ company is or this dude I met or that lady I met or whatever, but like I'm doing okay. I
Mm-hmm.
still have a company. My kids are fed. Like we have
Mm-hmm.
to find these reasons to be grateful for where we're at, because otherwise you can have all the success in the world. You don't enjoy any of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're more miserable as you get more and more wealthy if you
Mm-hmm.
can't enjoy and be grateful for where you're at and and how far you've come. And
Yeah.
that's an exercise, a daily exercise that you got to do, um, because you can always find somebody who has it better than you, or who's
Mm-hmm.
farther ahead than you, or who makes more money, or has a whatever. Doesn't matter. There's always
Mm-hmm.
something to be ungrateful for, but there's a billion more other things to be grateful for. And if you can tune your brain to just do that, and you find these ways to rehearse that, it changes a lot. I know, like one of the things we have, like one of our core values as a team, it's thank you, thank you. And we say thank you twice.
Uh-huh.
I'm a Bible guy, so in the Bible, when Jesus wanted to like
Yeah.
make a point really clear, he would say it twice. I think
Mm-hmm.
that might be like an old Hebrew thing or something. I don't quite know how that all started, but he would say the
Mm-hmm.
word twice. And so we have this expression, thank you. And it's all about not just saying thank you, but showing gratitude. So how do you show gratitude to someone? And so every week we have a Friday call with our team, and on that call you talk about something that you are grateful for in your personal life, something you're grateful for in your professional life. So something you've worked on, the client experience, whatever. You give a high five to a team member, and then we generally have a core value focus for the week where we're kind of like digging into one of our core values, and we have like an action step to apply that for the week, and then we kind of talk about that. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I am so like I'm so convinced that if we can figure out the gratitude thing, we can
Mm-hmm.
do better work and just live happier generally. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, man. That's like it's like the curse of high performers, and then setting, not always moving those goalposts, and
Mm-hmm.
it's it like you said, man. It literally changes. So it starts like, okay, how can I just scrape towards tomorrow? How can I get to the next day? And then things start to become real, and then your perspectives change, your goals change. You have a
Sure.
family, you have a team, you have financial expectations, you have financial burdens, you have expectations that you set for yourself personally. And it's, yeah, man, it's so good. Like, I can't even, yeah. But anyway, like, to get more tactical, how have your guys' structure, team, services, how has that kind of evolved throughout like the needs of of customers that you are working with now? So you started more in the traditional, I mean, you started it from the ground up, so more traditional web design, marketing, collateral services. How does that kind of differ from what you do now, and how has that kind of evolved over time? And where do you see yourself allocating more of your efforts and so forth towards in the future?
Yeah. Well, I think that like when we initially started, or at least for me, when I started, like I had experience designing things, but I didn't have experience in web. But it was like at the time, the web was a thing, the internet was a thing. I'm not that old, but I just was comfortable designing logos and branding and more print related things. And then I was like, well, if I'm gonna do this for real, like I got to learn how to do the website part of things. So we started, I started learning how to build WordPress sites, and that became part of it. And then it was like, well, people who have websites, they don't just want a website for the sake of having a website. The website is to serve a purpose, which is to educate the world about who they are, to drive new business to their company. So we were like, we got to figure that out. And that's kind of where social media, like Facebook advertising, all that stuff really started taking off and was really becoming a massive thing. And so we dabbled in that and got some level of comfort and a level of quality, a level of experience in that. Once again, like I never really enjoyed that piece of it because I never saw how it all connected. We're just going to run Facebook ads for you. We're just going to run Google ads for you. And then really wasn't until maybe a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where we kind of started to consider how sales and marketing work together. So like what people would call like account-based marketing is a common term now for that. How do you integrate sales and marketing? Because a lot of times, especially for the companies that we're working with, we're not really dealing with, most of the people we work with are not like e-commerce shops. It's not like a click, see ad, click ad, go to website, purchase, have it shipped to you. Most of the time, that's not the case. Although we do have a couple of clients like that. Most of the people we work with it's B2B. So B2B, it takes longer. It takes relationship. It takes nurturing. It takes consideration. It takes all these different components. And so my thing was like, how do we connect marketing, so branding, communication stuff, marketing, and sales? How do we integrate all those things together? And so that's a lot of what we do now in working with our clients is account-based marketing. So we're teaming up with sales teams, and we're building systems to be able to function with them, kind of partner with them to make what they do more effective and more streamlined. And so it's not just like marketing is over here and sales is over here. I find that most companies who have that scenario, they're frustrated. There's no collaboration. You kind of miss out on the synergy that happens when marketing and sales works together. So a lot of what we do now is kind of pointed in that direction.
Yeah. And I mean, I would love to get your opinion on like how niching. So the way you kind of describe Williams Media right now is like it's almost like a fractional sort of like team edition model where you're getting the benefits of this whole team with all these areas of expertise. Traditional, more of agency, but it's not. You're adding the value of everything without diluting yourself in a bunch of different directions.
Sure.
And I love that because it's more of a partnership mindset rather than a employee mindset. So it's like I think a lot of freelancers kind of fall into like the day to day of, okay, like you're hiring me, I'm gonna do these checkbox tasks. I'm your designer, like you tell me to do this, and this, work off the sheet of revisions, and it's not as much of a communicative process as.
Sure.
And I think that it's like that with any industry, But how did you kind of? I mean, you've adjusted to like the needs of the industry and so forth, and all the advice that you'll hear, like courses, business podcasts, everything, they'll all say to find a niche, get really clear on your ideal target customer, and sometimes they don't all fit into that like polished white box of this age group, this industry, this demographic. And at the end of the day, you want to work with the people that energize you. There's no really any better way to put it where the communication is easier. It's not stressed. You don't feel like you have to impress them or live up to their standards. But you're really working together. Like they offer solutions that help you and their different expertises. And it's just like a really collaborative process where you let them focus on what they are the best at, and
Yeah.
then your services, your skill set, your body of work can like lift that up. And for you guys, it's obviously the sales and marketing piece and integrating those together for organizations. But
Mhm.
is that kind of how you present it to organizations? Basically, like these are the needs that we think you guys might have, and how we can slot those in there because we have these. It's almost like a fractional kind of marketing advisor where we can do
Sure.
these services, and this is how they would fit into what your business is and how your sales and marketing teams are already working, and here's how we can like slot ourselves in there. Is that kind of how it goes?
Well, the way I would say it is like we have what we would call like core services, or like
Mm-hmm.
built out processes and ways that we do very particular things. But we kind of, and I heard this analogy, this is coming to my head, when you're golfing. This guy I know is a fantastic golfer. He told me when you're golfing, you want to hold the club like you're holding a bird. Okay. You
Yeah.
can't grip it too hard because you'll kill it. And you can't grip it too loosely because it will fly away. And
Yeah.
every time I golf, which is about once a year, I think about that because I think that's how I look at our services. The marketing, design, web, internet world is still in its infancy. So if we hold that too tight, we're going to choke ourselves out. If we're too focused on what is working today, we're never going to innovate for the future. So while it's very important that we, have core industries that we work with, I wouldn't say that we are like super niched down. And I know that really works for some people, and I have no issues with
Mm-hmm.
that at all. In fact, I've tried to do it so many times, but every time I
Mm-hmm.
try, it's like, but what about this? And I love how you said
Yeah.
that word energized. If I do this and I don't do that, like if I did this over here, it would really energize me. Now you have to
Mm-hmm.
be concerned about shiny object syndrome, which is very real
Mm-hmm.
as well. But I think as I've gone through this over the years, I know what a good opportunity is and what isn't. Not that I don't make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes anymore, because I certainly do, but I'm better able to vet opportunities as they come.
Yeah.
Hold
Yeah.
our core services with that loose grip, because we don't want to get stuck in this, we're just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then we, in another 2 years, we're obsolete. Like with
Mm-hmm.
everything happening with AI right now, we're putting a ton of money and attention into developing our own LLMs and our own neural networks so we can, kind of, the way I say it is our CMO, Jeremy, he's freaking brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
He goes out into the future and he tests a bunch of crap
Mm-hmm.
at Williams Media and
Mm-hmm.
then brings it back so that we can apply it to our clients. But like, if
Mm-hmm.
we're not investing in that, if we're not doing that, and we're too focused on like process and like the niche that we serve right here, right now, I think that, uh, you know, I would be concerned that we would choke ourselves out, that
Mm-hmm.
we would not have business to tend to because we were
Mm-hmm.
too focused on like the thing that we created. We kind of held it like as like an idol, that it was this, perfect thing that we couldn't veer from. So while I
Mm-hmm.
do think it's important to have a focus, I think you do need to, especially in our world, and I think maybe other industries that like that it's different, but just as well as I do, in the internet world, things change every single day. I mean, think about it, a year ago, 18 months ago, we didn't have ChatGPT. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even a thing. There was that didn't exist. No one was writing copy or writing contracts or building websites with a click 18
Mm-hmm.
months ago. Now what is possible, and the stuff that Jeremy's working on, which I can barely wrap my mind around, it's unfathomable.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were holding too close to our way of doing things, we would be
Yeah.
deceived. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
I think that mindset like really fits kind of your personality and what we talked about earlier. You were able to kind of prospect what's to come and be excited about it, and also at the same time, you're not stressed about it. You have your finger on the pulse of what's going on, and you're investing time and doing due diligence into being prepared for it and implementing it into the agency now.
mm-hmm.
But because of your nature of not having the perfect vision and the writing on the wall beforehand, and not like living up to this, not being too set in your ways. It's like strong beliefs but loosely held, so you're very set on your core values.
Sure.
But how those get realized in your services or your processes or what the team looks like in the future, that could be interpreted many different ways, and maybe offering this service and implementing these things as we go, if it serves our people and it's allowing us to do more of our work, then for our clients to get more value out of it too, like it's nothing but positive. So
Sure. Let me make just a quick correction, just for the sake of being honest. I have moments where I'm very stressed. That's it's fairly normal, but I will say the only time that I get stressed is when I get out of that, I've got what I need for today sort of mentality. When I start acting like a grown up, and I start acting like I need to be responsible and I've got all the stuff to carry and whatever, that's when the stress comes. But if I go back to the way I was when I started, where it was just like, I'm just going to take this day by day. I'm going to figure it out as I go. I'm not really worried about it, which I'm sure felt stressful at the time. But when I look back, I was like, oh, it was super easy, But when I get to planning into how is this going to happen, rather than just do what I'm supposed to do today and retain the values that I have today, knowing that those things are going to pay off tomorrow, that's really the sweet spot. Harder, it's easier to say than it is to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like, for me at least, if I can stay in that sweet spot, it's much better for me.
Yeah, and it's so hard to do because it's that self-awareness piece of knowing what creates that mindset of balance, which I don't even love the word balance because I think it looks different for everybody.
Sure.
But it's keeping a pulse on the inside, as well as how, like, what you're saying affects other people, and it's so tough to do that, man. But dude, like, seriously, this is the highlight of my day. I want to be mindful of your time. But yeah, what are something in the next week, the next month, something in the short term? Because I learned that's how we both think. But what's something very top of mind, present, that has you excited? Like, what are you jumping to get out of bed for in the morning?
Well, this is not related to business, but my son is he's 6 years old. He's 5 years old. He's going to turn 6 next week, and he gets his purple belt on Friday. He's doing Taekwondo.
Okay.
Friday, so I'm excited about that. The other part of it is that for his birthday, we're going to go to Great Wolf Lodge, which is like an indoor water park situation. So I'm looking forward to that. I guess professionally, we just brought on a new client, or I guess some folks we've been working with for a while. They're in the medical device space, and we just kind of penned a deal for a new kind of more expanded scope of work than what we were doing previously. So I'm very excited about that. They're awesome people. They've got a fantastic batch of products, and I'm really excited to just kick things off with them. So can't say much more than that, but it's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
New challenge. It's new, it's going to be fun. I'll say it that way.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. And I like to end on kind of like a high note like that, because you can get so touched on. We got like a little bit philosophical as far as, business ownership and the deep side of like how we're prospecting all these things. But staying short term and top of mind is like, I think that's what life is like you have these small moments and the foreseeable future that you're looking forward to and preparing for. And then those just kind of stack on each other. And that's what, getting the most out of those and building those over time is kind of what makes a fulfilling life, I think. So,
I like it.
And also just like giving yourself credit, like taking a moment. Like I had a call right before ours that went really well, and this could be like a big project. And instead of just like, okay, got to get ready, you got to, go take a walk, get food ready, I have a networking event at 5. Like instead of like, okay, like take 2 or 3 seconds and think like, wow, there would have been a time where that was like the highlight of my week. And
totally.
So just bringing that top of mind and, giving yourself a pat on the back, because you are a mildly impressive person. So,
thank you, man. I will do that.
But yeah, man. But where can people go learn about Williams Media Houston and all the cool stuff you guys got going on?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, williamsmedia.co. That's our agency website. And then our small business service website is called Houston. You can see it right there, HUESTON.co. And there's all the Instagrams and stuff like that if you want to go check us out on socials.